In the dark of the night, a city in despair, whispers in the alley, secrets fill the air. A shattered planet where the truth is hard to find, mysteries unraveling, leaving scars behind. Shattered planet where the shadows breed, crimes unsolved, a never-ending need. Rocking the headlines with stories untold. Welcome to the chaos, the darkness unfolds.
The number of migrants appealing against their rejected asylum claims has hit a record high. More cases are taking over a year to process, meaning migrants and asylum seekers are staying in hotels for longer. There were 50,976 asylum appeals still unresolved as of March, according to official figures. This is the highest appeals backlog there has been, and almost double last year's total. A claim to be heard by the courts now takes on average 54 weeks. A third of all asylum cases have been in the works for more than a year. An asylum seeker's chance of avoiding deportation is greater the longer that they remain in the UK, as they gain rights which can be used to block them being deported. Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights protects an individual's relationship developed while in a country. Meanwhile, the total number of migrants to arrive in the UK on small boats for this year so far stands at more than 18,400. This compares to 12,313 by the same date last year in 2024 and 10,518 in 2023, while 11,690 had made the crossing by June 20th in 2022. Home Office figures show 437 people alone made the crossing on Friday, June the 20th, in 7 boats, while on the Saturday, a further 583 crossed in 8 boats, bringing the total for just those 2 days to 1,020 people. The arrivals came despite the French appearing to take a tougher stance on their beaches. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer has said the situation is deteriorating. He threatened a visa crackdown. The PM signalled that countries which don't do enough to tackle the irregular migration crisis, for example, by taking back failed asylum seekers, could face repercussions in the number of visas issued to their citizens. Sir Keir's message came as French police were seen to employ more robust tactics on the beaches this week. Those included using tear gas. But they were also seen to stand by and watch once the migrants had entered the water to board in a dinghy in the hopes of crossing the English Channel. Chancellor Rachel Reeves has pledged to move all asylum seekers out of hotels by 2029, but the latest figures help illustrate the scale of the challenge. The government will bring in a mandatory 24-week deadline for all asylum appeals via its Border Security Asylum and Immigration Bill. The Ministry of Justice is working to tackle a shortage of lawyers by boosting legal aid fees by 10% to make it more appealing to represent asylum seekers and reduce the delays. Most asylum seekers receive a £50 allowance per week and free accommodation to avoid them falling into destitution. According to figures, there were 106,771 asylum seekers in receipt of support, with 32,345 in migrant hotels and 66,683 were in houses, bedsits, or flats. A Home Office spokesperson said, "We inherited an asylum system under exceptional pressure, and we make no apologies for taking the necessary and immediate action to restore order, increasing asylum decision-making and returning nearly 30,000 people with no right to be here." Well, they need to do more than remove just 30,000 of them when nearly 20,000 have come in so far this year alone, and this crisis has been happening since 2018. An investigation has found migrants arriving in the UK on small boats are working illegally as delivery drivers, while another shows people being offered jobs within minutes of arriving. The investigation found dozens of migrants staying in a taxpayer-funded London hotel, operating as delivery drivers for some of the biggest companies in the UK. By law, migrants are unable to work under any circumstances if they have been in the country less than 12 months, and even those who have been here longer are not allowed to legally work as delivery drivers. However, dozens of migrants were seen leaving a three-star hotel in London wearing Deliveroo, Just Eat, and Uber Eats branding on e-bikes, able to earn around £1,000 a week, doing a 12-hour shift a day, while living in accommodation funded through public purses. Reacting to this investigation, Lee Anderson MP said, "If this is the kind of behaviour that British citizens and taxpayers are expected to tolerate in their own communities, then this Labour government has failed them massively." Ordinary Brits work hard every day, paying high taxes, supporting their families, and contributing to society. They should not have to worry about groups of inundated fighting-age males roaming the streets of their communities. A similar investigation saw a reporter go undercover as a small boat migrant from Afghanistan, and he was offered an account with a delivery company 10 minutes after signing up. When asked if having no documents was a problem, one Deliveroo dealer told him, "You will not be caught, inshallah," which means Allah willing. Delivery companies say that they take robust action to prevent those without the right to work from earning on their platforms, but they have been criticised for not having appropriate safeguards in place to prevent people from doing so. It does not take long to find online Deliveroo and Just Eat accounts for rent for as little as £40 a week. A spokesperson for the Home Office added, "Where reports of illegal working or antisocial behaviour are made, immigration enforcement teams in the Home Office investigate. We are taking action to clamp down on illegal working in all its forms, which is why we are introducing new laws to extend right-to-work checks for those in the gig economy, including for food delivery drivers." When asked about the many riders outside the migrant hotel working with Deliveroo branded equipment, the business, which provides takeaway services for around 75,000 restaurants, grocery stores, and retailers in the UK, said, We have a dedicated team in place who ensure Deliveroo does not work with riders who don't have the right to work in the UK. I really think Deliveroo needs to re-examine who they've employed, because the amount of delivery drivers that can't speak a word of English is astounding. People should stop using Deliveroo, Just Eat and Uber Eats. Get off your lazy arse and go out to pick up your food. Or choose a place that has their own drivers, that doesn't use these outsourced companies which have inflated prices and delivery charges. Picking it up yourself is far cheaper. Migrants drinking and taking drugs outside of a central London migrant hotel became hostile when they got asked why they were working illegally. This is the moment a migrant threatened to smash a reporter's face outside an asylum hotel in central London.
You're asylum seekers in the hotel. Could you tell me why you're working? Yeah, no, sorry. Is there a reason why you're working? We're down at a central London migrant hotel where last night I watched 10 asylum seekers leave the premises, get on courier bikes and go to do work, which legally they are not allowed to do. So we're going to go and try and speak to some of them and ask them what's going on. So people were in and out of this place like nobody's business last night, and fully expecting it to be the same, because we've seen already people leaving on the bikes at exactly the same time. Hi, how you doing? Do you work for the hotel? Security. You work as a security. Hi, yeah. Could we have a word? We just want to find out about the people that are working here. Is there a reason why you ignored me? Why have you put the hoarding up?
Any questions? Just directly towards the Home Office.
The Home Office. So the Home Office is okay with people working? To the Home Office. Any questions, we've got to go to the Home Office. So that was, I presume, hotel security. They didn't answer, and they said any questions go to the Home Office about all the bikes you can see in there. If you have a look, there is Just Eat, Uber, all couriers, all breaching the terms of what's going on.
The incident took place as the asylum seekers were quizzed about working illegally as delivery drivers in the capital.
Sorry, excuse me. Can you explain why you're working as a courier? Sorry, what? I'm just asking him why he's working, but you're threatening me. We just tried to speak to the guy and he threatened to smash our faces. So interested what the Home Office will have to say about that.
Under UK law, asylum seekers cannot work for at least a year as they wait for their claims to be processed, and even those given permits cannot work as delivery drivers. But when investigations editor Zach Garner-Perkis tried to talk to the men working illegally, he was greeted with hostility. As he attempted to ask questions, migrants from the hotel attempted to intimidate him by riding lime bikes towards him at a fast speed and following him and his videographer. But one tall man with a Caribbean accent took it further. Having spent several minutes wandering out onto the pavement to stare down the camera, he then warned filming should stop, or he'd bust Garner-Perkis's head, after investigations editor approached an illegal worker for comment. "I'm just asking why he's working," Garner-Perkis replied, "and now you're threatening me." It was not the only incident of aggression witnessed by the reporter. Two of the migrants hanging around with the drinkers got into an altercation and had to be restrained. Security at the Home Office site eventually came to break the two men apart. This was a rare moment of proactivity from a team that made no attempt to contain the men's aggressive, antisocial behaviour. A petition to Parliament calling to stop providing financial support to asylum seekers, has been waiting for more than 2 weeks for a response from the government. Bob Clements, who created the online document, wrote that it advocates a cessation of financial and other support provided to asylum seekers by the government. He added, this support currently includes shelter, food, medical care, including optical and dental, and cash support. I believe that such provisions may inadvertently incentivize illegal migration, particularly in the English Channel. This petition is to urge the government to discontinue these support measures and payments. At the time of this episode, more than 392,170 people have signed, with 100,000 supporters needed for the issue to be considered for a debate by the MPs. Parliament's website reads, Parliament considers all petitions that get more than 100,000 signatures for debate. It adds that this petition is waiting for 21 days for a debate date. Now, the official government response to this petition is we are determined to tackle illegal migration and end the use of asylum hotels. But in the meantime, there is a legal requirement to support asylum seekers who would otherwise be living on the streets. We are grateful to everyone who took the time to sign this petition. In response, we will first explain the background to the current situation, and then set out what the government is doing about it. Background. Since the 1950s, the UK has been legally obliged under the Refugee Convention to properly consider the claims of asylum seekers arriving in our country. There is also a long-standing legal requirement to provide support to those asylum seekers who would otherwise be left destitute on our streets. Applicants for support must provide details of their income and assets, so an assessment can be made of their risk of destitution. If they provide misleading information, break the rules of their accommodation, or do anything else to breach the conditions of their support, it can be suspended or with. When this government came to office last July, it inherited an asylum system under unprecedented strain, with tens of thousands of cases waiting to be considered, and asylum hotels being used across the country to house the asylum seekers caught in that backlog. At their peak in autumn 2023, they had 400 hotels in use at a cost of almost £9 million per day. Our plan for change. As part of the government's plan for change, we are restoring order to the asylum system by clearing the backlogs, ending the use of hotels, and increasing the removal of individuals with no right to be in the UK. First, on clearing the asylum backlog, we have significantly increased the numbers of cases being processed each month. In the last full quarter, from January to March 2025, the second highest number of initial decisions was taken since records began in 2002, more than double the number taken in the last 3 months before the election. Second, on the use of asylum hotels, we will reach the point this summer where the number of hotels in use will have halved from its peak under the last government and our commitment remains to end their use entirely by the end of this Parliament. As a result of the action we have already taken, 500 million has been cut from the annual cost of asylum hotels. Third, on removing people with no right to be here, our new enforcement programme put almost 30,000 people on flights out of the UK up to the 18th of May, including the 4 biggest returns charter flights in our country's history. That includes 8,511 former asylum cases, an increase of almost a quarter compared to the same period 12 months earlier. We will continue to take action in all 3 areas above so that the cost of providing support to asylum seekers is reduced by as much as possible as quickly as possible. However, we cannot end this problem entirely overnight. There are still tens of thousands of people in the backlog, and even though we are working as fast as we can to process their cases, there is still a legal requirement to provide many of them with support in the interim. The petition proposals. The petition proposes ending that support immediately, and while we understand the objective behind that proposal, we have to recognise that in many cases, the people currently receiving that support would end up living on the streets instead, including many women and children. According to the latest official data, the number of rough sleepers in England in autumn 2024 was 4,667. So if we immediately ended the support given to every asylum seeker, it would increase that number by multiple amounts. We believe a better approach is to continue speeding up the processing of asylum claims, so that people who are genuine refugees can be accepted. Those who are not can be rejected and removed, and either way, we can keep working to cut the amount of money spent on asylum support. In addition, we will continue taking strong action to reduce the number of people entering the UK's asylum system in the first place. Through the work of our Border Security Command and the new counter-terror style powers in our Border Security Bill, we are doing what should have been done many years ago, and going after the organised criminal gangs who make millions bringing people across the Channel in small boats. We have also agreed with the French authorities that for the first time they will start intercepting those boats in the shallow waters off the French coast and taking the passengers back to the shore, something which their internal rules have previously prevented them from doing. And in our immigration white paper, we have not only set out plans to reduce net migration substantially from the record levels reached under the last government, we have also announced new proposals to crack down on abuse of the asylum system, in particular to prevent people coming here on student and work visas and then claiming asylum at the end of their stay. For too long, the previous government turned a blind eye to those abuses and let the system run out of control. But this government is determined to restore order to the system and save the taxpayer money. And that's signed from the Home Office. All in all, it sounds fantastic, but all they've really said is that they're planning to stop the use of migrant hotels. They're going to stop paying for migrant hotels. But they're also on about putting them in private rented accommodations. which would end the use of the hotels, but it doesn't remove any of them out of the country. So far since Labour have taken over a year ago, this is what we have spent roughly: 235 million to Ukraine, 225 million Ethiopia, 171 million Afghanistan, 145 million to Syria, 144 million to Yemen, 143 million to Somalia, 270 million to Sudan, 130 million to Palestine, 117 million to Nigeria, 107 million to Congo, 310 million to the WHO, 100 million to Pakistan, 80 million to Kenya, 68 million to Jordan, 65 million to Myanmar, 62 million Bangladesh, 60 million Nepal, 56 million to Lebanon, 56 million to Tanzania, and 50 million to Malawi. That's a lot of money that the UK are giving out. So let's add it all up. It comes to £2,594,000,000, so £2.5 billion. In 2024-2025, the overall cost of illegal migration housing was £1.67 billion, according to a report from May this year, and of course those numbers will have gone up slightly. So let's add that 1.67 billion onto the more than 2.5 billion we already have. That's a total of £4,264,000,000 in one single year that we've given away. Now that doesn't include something like the Chagos deal, or what we have to pay the EU, or any other miscellaneous bits and bobs, like the TVs for migrants or the Xboxes, things like that, clothes, mobiles. Can you imagine what that money could have been spent on instead of giving it to other countries? We could have controlled the influx of migrants crossing the channel. With the money saved, 4 billion, we could have built more hospitals, more doctors, dentists and schools. We could have sorted the NHS out. We could have put more police on the streets to tackle knife crime, rape gangs, paedophiles. The country would be safer. We could fix the road network and the rail network. We could make it safer and faster, cheaper to get to places. And you would still probably have enough left over to give a hell of a good chunk to something like cancer research. All of that money could have fixed so many problems in the UK, but we're too willing to give it to other countries. If the UK just grew some balls and started looking after its own people, just say, get to fuck with the rest of the world. We don't want to know, we're on our own for a bit. We need to sort us out. Until we are sorted out, we shouldn't be helping anybody else. We're giving away billions of pounds all the time, when really we just need to stop, look at the state of our own country, and fix our own problems. A Home Office worker who was paid thousands of pounds to grant asylum applications has been jailed. Imran Mullah, aged 39, abused his trusted position to manipulate claims and even rang refugees telling them he would help in return for cash. He was only caught after he phoned one asylum seeker requesting cash who informed his solicitor of the rogue worker. Muller was jailed for 4.5 years after admitting immigration offences and bribery. A man he helped, Nurul Amin Beth, 23, who pleaded guilty to paying Muller to grant his asylum application, has also been jailed for 18 months. Muller of Blackburn, Lancashire, was an executive officer in the asylum team based in Manchester. Preston Crown Court heard how he had completed all his training, including courses on security and data protection and counter-fraud, bribery and corruption. His role involved managing a digital caseload, and he was responsible for interviewing asylum seekers so he could consider their applications. Beg, a former national from Bangladesh, was refused asylum on the 15th of February 2024. He was informed by letter and advised of the appeals policy. The following day, he was contacted by Muller, who obtained his details from Home Office systems. 6 days later, Begg, who was living in Southampton at the time, transferred £1,500 into Muller's personal bank account. The pair were then in frequent communication over the following days. On the 13th of March, Muller committed a breach of policy by manipulating the computer system to allocate Begg's case to himself. This gave him the power to grant the asylum application. Over the following months, Begg transferred further cash into Muller's account, totaling £3,500. Around the same time, on the 7th of March, Muller rang his second target, a Turkish national who was waiting to hear if his asylum had been granted. Muller rang the man, giving a false name, and told him his application was likely to be refused, but he could help if he paid him £2,000. He told the man he would call back later. The man was so concerned about the call, so he reported it to his immigration solicitor, and Muller was arrested on the 19th of March 2024. He made no comment during his police interviews. While under investigation, Muller continued to receive money from Begg. Muller pleaded guilty to conspiracy to assist unlawful immigration, unauthorized access to computer material, and 3 counts of bribery. Begg admitted conspiracy to assist unlawful immigration and 2 counts of bribery. Police have told asylum seekers not to abuse or harass women, or face being arrested. Officers from Northamptonshire Police have put together a slideshow about UK culture, outlining that women have the same rights as men and must be treated with respect and courtesy. It warns, if you harass or abuse any female, you can be arrested. Moreover, police say that certain swear words can cause great insult, and individuals should be aware that taking photos and videos of any people without their permission can cause great offence. Well, no shit, Sherlock. It comes as the UK Borders Watchdog has said he does not think the government's plan to end the use of asylum hotels by 2029 will be achieved. Home Office figures suggest that 299 migrants crossed the UK by crossing the English Channel in 2018. This year so far, more than 18,400 migrants have arrived by the same route, a record for this point in the year since data collection began in 2018. The highest year of total arrivals was in 2022, and that was 45,774. Over 45,500 illegals, plus nearly 20 this year so far, plus the 299 that was in the year 2018, and then add on 2019, 2020, 2021, 2023. That's a lot of people. The Northamptonshire police scheme was uncovered after claims that young male asylum seekers were hanging around near a primary school in the county, including claims that they were filming. Why are these people filming children in a primary school? They're not taking them for wives. Sick bastards. The Independent Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration, David Bolt, told a committee of peers that there is not enough housing stock to deal with the number of people in the asylum system, and also questioned the ability to smash the gangs. Sir Keir Starmer has signalled that countries which did not do enough to tackle a regular migration crisis, for example by taking back failed asylum seekers, could face repercussions in the number of visas issued to their citizens. Speaking to reporters at the G7 summit in Canada earlier this month, the Prime Minister said it's a serious challenge that requires serious responses to it. Keir Starmer wouldn't know a serious response if it bit him on the arse. This comes after it was also reported today that a Qatari camel herder brought to Britain for a heart operation tried to rape a woman in a Chelsea hospital. Then he blamed it on having little interaction with women in his own country. Nasser al-Ghuranik has been jailed for 7 years and will be deported after his release, after dragging the woman into the toilets at the world-famous Royal Brompton Hospital in Chelsea, southwest London. The 27-year-old had travelled to Britain for treatment for a rare heart condition. He dragged the woman inside the toilet cubicle on August the 23rd, 2023, and sexually assaulted her for 5 minutes. He denied 2 counts of attempted rape and claims that as a member of a conservative Bedouin tribe in Qatar, he would not have had much contact with women outside of his family. Jane Bickerstaff, defending him, said that until July 2023, he had never left Qatar. He would have had minimal experience engaging with women outside of a family context. The only woman he would ever have any meaningful contact with is his mother. Limited visits to Doha and a preference for a desert environment curtailed his exposure to urban and modern societal norms. This defendant would have had no experience whatsoever in interacting with a woman. We submit that he was equivalent to an immature and inexperienced adolescent. He completely failed to understand her true feelings. Jurors convicted al-Ghuranik of the 2 counts of attempted rape. However, on top of sexual assault and causing to a person to engage in sexual activity, without their consent, to which he had previously admitted. In a victim impact statement read to the court, his victim said, "I was so scared. I felt frozen with fear. I couldn't go anywhere. Although the incident lasted a few minutes, it felt like ages to me. I was very shocked to hear it was only 5 minutes. A few days after the incident, I had huge anxiety and fear. I could not leave the house. My life has never been the same. My family still do not know what happened to me. I am so close to my family. It has been a lonely and isolated year for me. I am not the outgoing woman I used to be. I am withdrawn and highly anxious and overly cautious, especially when I'm on my own in an unfamiliar environment." Judge Adam Hiddleston told Al-Ghurainik, who was aided in the dock by an Arabic interpreter, that he accepted there were cultural differences between the UK and Qatar. But, he also added, "You know perfectly well what you were doing was against her wishes." The effect these actions had on the woman had been profound, the judge added. She has suffered from difficulty sleeping, nightmares and flashbacks. She is now receiving therapy, he added. Clearly what you did has had a devastating effect on her. There is evidence of severe psychological harm. The judge jailed Al-Ghurainik for 7 years, minus the 415 days he has served on remand. He will be returned to Qatar when he has served his sentence, Judge Hiddleston added. He should be sent back to Qatar now and put in a jail over there. Why should we feed him and clothe him and look after him and keep him safe when he came to our country for help and tried to rape somebody? Get him the fuck out of here. Thank you for listening to the Shattered Planet podcast. All of our news stories and more can be found on our open Facebook group, Shattered Planet. You can find all of our socials in the description box below. And remember to subscribe and follow our channel so you don't miss the latest stories from around the UK and abroad. Stay vigilant and stay safe.
In the dark of the night, a city in despair whispers in the alley, secrets fill the air. A shattered planet where the truth is hard to find. Mysteries unraveling, leaving scars behind. Shattered planet where the shadows breed. Crimes unsolved, a never-ending need. Rocking the headlines, the stories untold. Welcome to the chaos, the darkness unfolds.